This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Do you play FanDuel and feel like you aren't creating consistent money-making lineups? Go over to the DFS Doctors on Twitter at the DFS Doctors and DM them with promo code Detroit Sports to get a free trial for their analytically formulated 70% lifetime profit rate NFL and NBA lineups. The whole purpose of playing daily fantasy sports is to get out there and compete and give yourself a chance to win. So go over to the DFS Doctors. Let them help you. They have analysts on staff that look at the best optimal lineup that you can put out there to win money. So why not take advantage? At the DFS Doctors, promo code Detroit Sports.
CBD is a game changer sweeping the nation. This hemp extract is the natural way to elevate your mood, eliminate aches and pains, reduce anxiety, and keep you sleeping all night long. It can even cut your workout recovery time in half. Get in the game today with 20% off all orders of CBD and lavender products from Lavender Lane, a lavender farm located right here in Milan, Michigan. Just go to lavenderlanemi.com today and enter coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order. Guys, look, these amazing products are infused with calming lavender to maximize their effectiveness, meaning your CBD items only take minutes to take effect, which is way quicker than those pills you were about to swallow. On top of it, they are perfect for men and women. Lavender Lane has lab-tested CBD creams, tinctures, and roll-ons that are perfect for any situation, even if you're on the go. Put your health back in your hands by heading over to lavenderlanemi.com and entering coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order of CBD and lavender products. What do you have to lose? Your satisfaction is guaranteed or your money back. So if you need lavender gifts for your loved ones or just looking for the natural way to ease your discomfort with CBD, go to lavenderlanemi.com and use coupon code Detroit to unlock these miraculous benefits of CBD and lavender. That's lavenderlanemi.com. And remember, use coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your CBD and lavender products from Michigan's own Lavender Lane.
And welcome to the latest edition of Two Bad Hombres. I am your host, Vito Jerome Churko. Now, typically, I open up every single edition of Two Bad Hombres, and typically, alongside John Charles Macron, by the way, as well, who is off right now for this week, and dealing with other, much more important stuff with his work as a psychologist, and he's still, I know, getting clients to come in to talk with him, and he's doing his work and staying busy with that, and not only that, but also with SI All Lions, the Sports Illustrated affiliated Lions website that him and I currently write for. I serve as the editor for that. But also, even on a much larger scale, he is currently dealing with the real-life repercussions of dealing with a pandemic that this nation in my lifetime has never seen, and many people's lifetime have never seen. Even my grandmother, who is 93, actually celebrating a birthday on March 27th. So coming up, and that would be next Saturday, she is celebrating, I believe, what will be her 94th birthday. And she has dealt with and gone through World War I, World War II. She has gone through depression, and in terms of the Great Depression, she's seen the economy hit rock bottom. She's seen a lot of bad stuff in her time and has gone through many trials and tribulations. And when she was growing up, she didn't have the most privileges that a lot of us now have grown accustomed to and just get when we are young. And it's like no big deal. We grow up with these kind of privileges nowadays that many of my grandmother's peers and her family members and friends, when they were growing up, didn't have the luxury of having. So we've had it much easier, my peers, my generation, the millennials, those younger than me, even those older than me that are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. So the middle-aged individuals that I know and love, my mom and dad, and others in my family and close to my family have never endured through such a hard and rough time that many Americans are currently dealing with. And because of how tough it already has been and will continue to be for the inevitable future, it's inevitable. That's what I meant to say, inevitable that it will be tough for the foreseeable future. And not just from a health perspective because of COVID-19. That is the coronavirus pandemic that has struck the nation and struck the entire world. So it's people house to house in my neighborhood on 16 Mile and Moravian in Clinton Township, Michigan. But it's also people spread throughout many different places in this nation and in the world, meaning people of all walks of life. Doesn't matter the color of your skin or your socioeconomic status, this virus is affecting you. And once again, maybe it's not through the disease hitting you, somebody in your family or a loved one that could be a friend of yours and a very close friend of yours. But maybe this virus is hitting you and hitting you deeply and on a personal level when it comes to your day-to-day job. It might be affecting your paycheck. That paycheck that you grew accustomed to and that you live and die by and support your family through might no longer be there right now or cease to exist as this pandemic grows and becomes worse and worse. And right now, the experts have told us that the fact is that this will be worse before it gets better. It will inevitably get worse before it gets better, guys. Meaning a lot of people will be out of jobs, already are out of jobs. Many business owners will have to make the tough decision to lay off people that once again live paycheck to paycheck, live and die by their respective job that they're employed through right now. And there's some people that have already had to work more than one job to make ends meet and to put food on the table for their families. And now they might not have either of those jobs. And they needed both to survive. So how are these individuals going to survive? And this is who we have to feel bad for and try to help out right now. So I know a lot of people are freaking out and thinking that this is the worst case scenario for themselves and that life will never get better for themselves and for their family members and friends. But at the same time, there's always somebody worse off than you. So remember that. Truly, truly take that into account, because there's always somewhere in the world where somebody is worse off than you. And we have to remind ourselves of that very fact right now as we're dealing with, the toughest experience of my lifetime, being home and off of work almost completely. Once again, people are worse off than me. I know that, and that's why I'm saying this right now. There are people that have been laid off, have been fired even from their jobs, have to now and try to file for unemployment, hope to find work at some point somewhere else, even though people are not going to be hiring during this dire economic circumstance in which the economy is faltering and more rapidly by the day. So once again, people, numerous individuals, hundreds and thousands and hundreds of thousands of individuals are out of jobs, we know, or will be, because this pandemic, there's no end in sight right now. And once again, at least for the foreseeable future, this pandemic will continue to strike us, and if not us, individuals that we know and that we love dearly. So everybody is suffering the repercussions, once again, of this coronavirus pandemic, whether it be something related to your health with this disease, where your health has now been suffering because of this virus. You've had to go into the hospital and get treated for the virus, have had to self-quarantine because you have been stricken with the virus, or somebody else in your family that perhaps you live with that you've actually been exposed to has come down with the virus, and now you're self-quarantining because of that fact. Or plain and simple, you're just self-quarantining right now because you should be. The CDC has recommended that for all of us to become self-isolated. So to separate ourselves from all of those that we grew accustomed to dealing with on a day-to-day basis because of our work life. Or it might be friends now that we can't see for this given period of time because we need to be self-isolated. And with that being said, guys, we need to follow proper protocol. Whatever the CDC, the World Health Organization, is telling us to do, we need to follow and take heed to their advice right now. This is not only about our lives and the fact that our lives are on the line and we want to stay healthy ourselves, but we also want to keep everybody else out there healthy. And if we expose ourselves by going out and trying to live our lives freely and without care right now, by just, going into stores when we don't have to right now, and if we're suffering any symptoms right now of the coronavirus, even have a sniffle, a runny nose, and you think it might just be a cold, and then once again you expose yourself to others by going into a store and when you don't have to, well, you could be causing somebody else to come down with the virus and come down with it much more harshly in a way in which their body can't react to it or doesn't react to it in a very strong fashion, and thus succumbs to the disease and maybe even loses their life because of it. So remember, we are taking heed to the advice of the CDC to stay self-isolated, to only hang out in groups of 10 or less right now, because of the fact that we want to keep everybody else out there healthy and alive. So alive and well as well. That's the most important thing right now to take into account, that you are not only following protocol from the CDC and the World Health Organization and taking heed to their expert advice because of you looking out for yourself and your own well-being, but also because, remember, guys, you are looking out for the well-being of everybody else out there in this country and throughout the world as well. So once again, this is not a great situation to be in right now for any of us, for this nation, and for the world. And when this pandemic will wash away is still unknown, and the experts don't even have the answer regarding that right now, and might not for a long time, and actually might never have that answer, because this virus is changing in scope and magnitude by the day, and you see more and more businesses subsequently being closed down, people's pocketbooks being affected subsequently. So there is no true answer right now for when this pandemic once again will wash away. Even you see Dr. Fauci out there, who is this highly trusted, respected dude in the Trump administration right now, who is, going on major news outlets day in, day out to tell the nation to take precaution and to tell people around my age, people that are fellow millennials and are in their 20s and even younger, to take precaution, even though they think, and really we all think right now as millennials, or a lot of us, not we all think, but people around my age and younger have the mindset that they're invincible, when truly they are not. So remember, you are not, and that's why you listen to the words of Dr. Fauci and Sanjay Gupta on CNN and Dr. Jennifer Ashton from ABC News. You see these doctors all over these various major news outlets and preaching the same message, to stay self-isolated, to wash your hands, to not involve yourself with big groups of people right now. All of those practices right now are practices that everybody must apply to their own lives, must follow on a day-to-day basis right now. And once again, because it's bigger than you, what we're dealing with right now. So it's not just about you, the individual. It's about everybody else surrounding you in your life, or others, once again, that you could go out and affect and infect with the disease by going and exposing yourself to others at various public locations when you have already symptoms of the virus. So guys, don't go out and chance it. Stay indoors, and once again, practice safe measures and follow the guidelines of the CDC and these doctors who are trained in this, know what they're talking about. They are the experts, so take heed to their advice at all times. And once again, those doctors that are appearing on ABC, on CNN, you name it, they're going out there to keep you and everybody safe. So remember that once again when dealing with this virus. And even though everything just seems so darn negative right now about the virus and what's going on with it, and it seems like at times that there might not be a cure for this disease, or better put, a vaccine that will be developed. Well, remember, these doctors and medical professionals are working actively and all day and night long to develop some kind of medicine and a vaccine eventually, which, as I have found out, you have to go through a process to actually get that, patented per se, and to be able to use it on individuals. So we can't rush to a conclusion with that. A vaccine eventually will be developed, but there are many steps to the process of where it could then be allowed to be implemented and used on individuals to treat this virus. So anyways, with all of that being said, there will be brighter days eventually, but I started the podcast with that this week on a much lighter tone because of the fact that that is so much bigger than any kind of sport transaction out there right now in the NFL when it comes to NFL free agency, which opened up earlier this week, or anything else related to the NFL or the sports world. Right now, the coronavirus and practicing safe measures and worrying about your health, your well-being, and the well-being of others, that trumps, no pun intended, guys, with President Trump being the current U.S. president. But anyways, that trumps everything in the sporting world. And that's why I am of the mindset that I think it's kind of dirty and was wrong and was tone deaf. Tone deaf, definitely, guys, for the NFL to have started the NFL league year on this past Wednesday and to have then also started the free agency period for this offseason this past Wednesday. And I say it was wrong, it was dirty, and it was tone deaf when you look at the optics of that decision made by Commissioner Roger Goodell and the NFL's commissioner office as a whole to go through with the start of the league year when you're going through a pandemic. And not only as a country in the United States of America, but also as a world. So the NFL still, once again, allowed itself to proceed to move forward with the start of the league year earlier in the week. And I, once again, am of the mindset that there was no need to do it. No need to jump to the start of the league year when you're dealing with the pandemic and people's lives right now, all throughout the country and the world, once again, are being affected. People are losing their jobs, are losing their lives even. And many people, more and more, once again, of these coronavirus issues are flaring up by the day. You see more and more people being infected with the coronavirus by the day. To be more specific here, people being laid off, more and more individuals being laid off and losing their jobs, being fired actually from their places of employment by the day. And then the NFL still has the audacity to follow through at the start of its league year as regularly scheduled. I just think it was wrong, it was dirty, and it was tone deaf and asinine. A lot of adjectives to throw out there at you guys. And I don't want to come off as too harsh because I still write for SI All Lines. I love the NFL and follow the NFL and have been throughout the course of this week with all of the latest free agency developments, and so many tasty and juicy developments have happened throughout the course of this week since free agency did open up this past Wednesday, such as Tom Brady now becoming a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. I mean, who would have thought that he would leave New England after 20 years and 6 Super Bowl championships? But he has decided to move on from New England to join Bruce Arians and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So sure, that is exciting. That is juicy. And everybody heavily consumed it. I mean, everybody was all over it on Twitter and giving their reaction. And I retweeted some stuff from the Bucs when they announced that Brady had joined their organization. So that was exciting, and that was great to see. But at the same time, guys, with everything going on right now that is so much bigger than football and bigger than sports, you know what? Commissioner Goodell, you could have delayed the start of your league year. You didn't need to start free agency this past Wednesday. The NFL could have waited with all of this, guys, and it should have, because once again, this nation and this world are dealing with much more important and taxing and hugely crucial things right now, collectively, because when you're dealing with life and death and somebody's job, the way in which they get by and provide food, on their table for themselves and their family, that will always trump sports and any kind of hobby or fun you have, or TV show you love watching, film you love watching, any kind of hobby you have, any kind of activity that you do. When it comes to, once again, somebody's life being on the line, whether it is their health and or their job and their job security, well, all of that, once again, it always will trump sports. And I love sports. Once again, I love the NFL. I love everything about the free agency period, and it's been a lot of fun tracking it for SI All Lions since Wednesday. But I think the start of it should have been delayed. And now, moving on from that to what the Lions did once free agency did open up this past Wednesday. And you can look at the fact that the Lions did acquire 9 guys altogether since then. Now, that includes a trade, remember, as well, that they made with the New England Patriots, and they made that deal with Bill Belichick and the Pats to acquire Duron Harmon, a safety who I gave the Lions an A- for acquiring. And I want to get into my grades now for the Lions offseason acquisitions up to this point being Saturday, March 21st. Almost in March 20th, because you lose track of the days now with being home and being isolated and secluded. But once again, it's all for a good cause. And since I have been home, have been keeping track of everything when it comes to free agency, and I feel like I'm even more in tune with the Lions and the moves that they have made. So I think my grades were good for the most part and fair to the Lions. I gave Bob Quinn and company in that Lions front office an overall grade of B for their 9 acquisitions, and actually 8 when I penned the piece earlier in the week. That piece for SI All Lions came out on Thursday, and you can find it at Detroit Podcast on Twitter. Also through my personal Twitter handle of @Vito Jerome. I know I did retweet that piece, or quoted the tweet from Detroit Podcast about the piece as well once it came out. So anyways, I digress now and want to get to my grades. And first, with that trade of the Lions with the Patriots, and it landed the Lions Duron Harmon. He is a safety once again who has played a lot of free safety in his time in the NFL. As I wrote for SI All Lions, in fact, according to Pro Football Focus, he has lined up in the regular season at the position of free safety 91.5% of the time since 2015. And guys, along the way, he has earned a 92.6 coverage grade at free safety from PFF, which is tied for number 6 among all safeties. So he put up some good numbers in his time in a Pats uni. And a real big shout out now to my colleague at SI All Lions in the hugely smart and the terrifically superb. I'm going to give him a ton of adjectives here to describe his football acumen, and that would be the one and only Logan Lamorandier. And I probably jacked up his last name, but it's a little bit tough to say. Anyways, as Logan tweeted out this past week, Harmon has also recorded 10 interceptions since 2017, tied for the 5th most among safeties during that span. And I went on to say that Quinn and company traded a 5th rounder in this year's draft, and by doing so, landed Harmon and a 7th rounder in April's draft this year. So, as I described in the piece, a nice low-key move that could pay dividends for the Lions safety group as the 2020 season does progress. So, I like that move from Quinn and company. And the move, I was going to say the trade, but the move now that I think was most widely panned and criticized, it's the one that I gave the lowest grade to as well. And it was the Lions acquisition of right tackle. I'm not going to even try to say it, but Vitae is his last name, and he goes by Big V. He is Mr. Big V, even though I am the one and only Big V, truly. But I'm going to give some love to this guy and go according to how everybody else refers to him as, and that is by the moniker of Big V. Anyways, a right tackle who previously spent time with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Vitae, in years past, now, once again, a backup who has never started more than 10 games in a single season. And when he started 10, it came back in 2017, by the way. So, There is a case to be made about him entering his prime right now, and that's because he'll only be 27 come the start of the 2020 regular season, whenever that may be at this point. And by the way, he turns 27 on June 16th, a week after I also turned 27. How about that? So both of us 1993 babies. Once again, you are hearing from right now the one and only Big V. Now, once again, I'll give him some props here. He could be entering the prime of his football career. However, I wouldn't have spent $45 million on him. And that is the case even though only $20 million of it is fully guaranteed and all through 2021, according to SpotRack. So that is a great site for all things with players' contracts. So check that out for anything contract related, by the way, guys. And I know baseball contracts are there as well. And I think for all the professional sports leagues, you can find players' contracts at that site. Now, as I say in this SI All Lions piece, I would have spent my money that the Lions decided to spend on Vitae on fellow offensive tackle and a former Michigan State walk-on in Jack Conklin. And Conklin's a much more highly proven offensive tackle who was graded as the 10th highest graded OT, that is offensive tackle, last year. And that stat comes to us courtesy of Pro Football Focus. Now, he ended up inking a 3-year, $42 million deal with $30 million in guaranteed money with the Cleveland Browns. Only $10 million more than the guaranteed green that Vitae will receive with the Lions. So because of all of that added up, it is why I decided to give the other Big V in Motown the letter grade of C, the lowest grade that I handed out for any of the Lions' 9 acquisitions. Once again, I wrote about the 8 when it was 8 players that they had acquired, and that was as of Thursday of this past week. So I'm going to tell you the truth. I mean, I'm a Lions fan. I hope for the best with him and for the Lions, and subsequently, maybe Vitae is entering the prime of his career. But once again, the red flags do exist with him, and largely because of the fact that he's never been a full-time starter in the past in his NFL career. Once again, the most amount of games he's ever started as an NFL player is 10, and that was at this point, well, once the 2020 season starts, it will have been 3 years ago since that occurred for Vitae. So once again, rounding up my conversation or my analysis about Vitae, I decided to give him a letter grade of C. And moving on to Jamie Collins now. So the Lions did end up acquiring a bunch of former Patriots players during this free agency period so far. Collins, a veteran linebacker who spent parts of 5 years in New England and experienced a major bounce-back campaign in 2019 while donning a Patriots uni. And all of that being said, he was largely unproductive in 2.5 years spent in Cleveland. So the verdict is still out there regarding Collins and whether or not he can be productive in a uniform outside of a Patriots uniform. And if he can be, it will pay huge dividends for the Lions linebacker unit, which is now void of Devon Kennard, remember, a team captain who has been one of the best playmakers on that side of the ball for the Lions over the course of the last 2 years. A captain, the Lions NFLPA player rep as well, so did a lot of good for the Lions and inside the locker room. He was beloved inside that Lions locker room. Did things in the community. Just a well-rounded dude that was productive as a linebacker for the Lions over the course of the last 2 years. But the Lions, after acquiring Collins, they decided to part ways and decided to ultimately release Kennard. So Kennard on his way out, I believe he signed with the Cardinals. Collins on his way in, and it'll be interesting to see how the veteran fits in the defensive scheme of head coach Matt Patricia. Once again, as you guys already know, the former defensive coordinator of the New England Patriots. So Collins brings with him a wealth of experience as a player playing in the defensive scheme / system of Matt Patricia. So you would have to believe that Collins will easily buy into the system preached and coached by Matty P. So I do like that acquisition for the Lions, But he's also a guy that, has a track record of not succeeding when not in New England. So I decided to give a grade of B to the Lions for the acquisition of Collins. Moving on to the former defensive tackle for the Chicago Bears, and that would be Nick Williams. And he is another guy, just like Vitae, that has never been a full-time starter in the league up to this point, and is already 30 years old. As a result, it's not likely his best football is ahead of him at this point, and that's why he got a B- grade from me. Moving on to Chase Daniel. And how about this? He's a former Bears quarterback, so another former Bear the Lions have acquired this offseason, and a decent backup QB in the past. But remember, he's only started 5 games as a starter. So he's only been a starter 5 times throughout his NFL career. So there's no real big threat to Matthew Stafford. And subsequently, Stafford's not going to fear this guy. Daniel is not going to be the guy that can catapult Stafford with a great training camp or take over if the Lions trade Stafford to another franchise leading up to this April's NFL draft. And, okay, possibly that still does exist as a possibility for the Lions, and that is dealing Matthew Stafford. Highly unlikely, but if they did and Daniel is your guy for the upcoming season, you're not going to win many games. So you're going to win less than what I think the Lions can win at this point, and it's going to be tough for them to even win 7 games at this point because of the strength of their division. And you know what? They're still suspect in a lot of areas, and Stafford still has to prove that he can stay healthy over the course of a full season after, remember, missing half of last year or this past season. So the verdict is out there about Stafford. How healthy and how productive will he be when he comes back? And then, as for Daniel, once again, a decent backup QB the Lions have added, who has been more productive, more proven than David Blau ever was when they had to go to him in the interim last year after Stafford went down. And first, remember, they went to Jeff Driscoll. Driscoll was all right. Blau was all right. But most of the time, those guys were barely all right. Daniel is more proven than the two of them, and I believe more competent as a passer in this league than the two of them. So Daniel is an upgrade, but still, once again, not a true threat to Stafford, and to Stafford's job, that is. Subsequently, I couldn't give Daniel more than a B grade, and that's a grade that I decided to give to him subsequently. So moving on from the backup QB that the Lions added to nose tackle Danny Shelton. To no surprise, another former Patriot, who the Lions got, I think, on a cost-effective 2-year deal, and got him on the cheap for $8 million over those 2 years. So I think a very nice bargain type of move from Bob Quinn and company this offseason. Also, the best acquisition, in my opinion, for the Lions and their front office thus far this offseason. So I decided to give the Shelton acquisition an A grade. And moving on now to, to Desmond Trufant, okay? And Trufant, a veteran cornerback who has played throughout his career before this with the Falcons, a first-round pick of those Atlanta Falcons in 2013. Once again, has had a solid career up to this point, but he'll be 30. He'll be 30, guys, come the start of the 2020 campaign. So you can't feasibly believe that the best football he has in him is ahead of him. So the Lions probably won't get that from him as he gets started with the Lions coming up here in 2020. Now, he ended 2019 in a positive fashion with the career-high 4 interceptions, but only played in 9 games due to injury. So you have that now that you have to bring up when you talk about Trufant. And it's definitely a detractor with him. And in talking about him and the value that he does bring to the Lions over the course of the next 2 seasons. And remember, he's going to be labeled right now as the successor to Darius Slay, the departing Darius Slay, who was traded, remember, to the Eagles this past week. So Slay is gone. Trufant is in. And Trufant will bring a nice veteran presence, but he has no Darius Slay. And once again, is 30 now. So because of all of that added up, I couldn't give this acquisition anything better than a B-. I was going to say a B, because I almost gave this acquisition of Trufant by Quinn and the Lions front office a B. But once again, with his injury past from a year ago taken into account, along with his age, couldn't give him a B, docked it down a bit, that overall grade for Trufant, to a B- because of that. So that is the mark for Trufant I decided to go with. And now to Jaron Kearse. Now, Kearse is a former 7th-round pick of the Minnesota Vikings, and he has some serious size to him, guys. He stands in at 6'4", 215 pounds, and obviously that gives him an upper hand when defending bigger receivers and tight ends. He also recorded the 4th highest grade for safeties in 2019 according to PFF. So he comes with some credibility. And here's the thing also about Kearse. Well, he has the NFL bloodline. So I know he's related to the one and only, how about, and I knew it wasn't Jermaine, it was Javon Kearse. Javon Kearse was the all-time great NFL player that Jaron Kearse is actually related to. So pretty cool bloodline there right now. And once again, I like this move for what the Lions will be expecting from him. And when you take into account, once again, what he did a season ago, and the grade given out by Pro Football Focus for his success as a Viking last season, all of that being taken into account, along with the fact that he got a 1-year deal only from the Lions, and subsequently I gave the acquisition of Kearse a B. So all of that added up, I decided to give Bob Quinn for his acquisition so far this offseason. I decided to give him the overall grade of B. And sure, there is reason to say that maybe he received a lesser mark, but with everything added up, and with me looking into the numbers, kind of crunching the numbers a little bit, it really added up to a letter B grade. So about an 85% with everything taken into account. And, if you equate those letter grades to what they would be number-wise, the number grade, the numerical grade. When all of that is added up and was taken into account by me, I decided to give Quinn that grade of the letter B. So do you think it was warranted for Quinn? Do you think he deserved that lesser grade or even a better mark than the one that I decided to give to him? Let me know by voicing your opinion via Twitter with me. You can direct message me always. You can always tweet at me and let me know your opinion as well by first giving me a follow on Twitter at Vito Jerome, and by sounding off as well once you do give me that follow. So always open to your guys' feedback, and also all of the ideas that you have in mind to kind of beef up this podcast and to help me out, make me even smarter here as a host and as a guy that does write articles for SI All Lions. And with all that being said, as of right now, a decent offseason for Bob Quinn and company. Obviously, there are those fans out there that aren't happy with him getting rid of Darius Slay. But at the point in which he was dealt, it was inevitable at that point that he would be on the go. So the Lions had to part ways with him, a guy that was unhappy at this point, did not want to be a Detroit Lion truly. So the Lions knew they had to move on from him, and Quinn knew he had to make a move. And after adding Trufant, more and more indication did appear that Slay would be traded. And then he was, and now he is no longer a Lion, just like that. So a lot of people will miss him and the impact that he made on the team, but also in the community, going to local high school basketball and football games all throughout his time with the Lions. So he made his presence known in so many different ways, and I think will always be beloved for the most part by a large sect of the Detroit Lions fan base. And guys, with that being said, please stay safe out there, and remember, this coronavirus, it trumps everything else out there that you feel is important, is an important hobby to you, is a fun activity that you would like to still do. It's not worth it to take part in any of those things right now unless you can do it from the confines of your own home. So stay in, stay safe, and stay healthy. And guys, adios for now.